Thanks, guys. Thank you very much. Sorry to have to read from my notes, but I didn't memorize my opening remarks. Thanks for coming out this evening. That was sort of fun to look at. The first thing that had gone through my mind was there's an obvious difference in both the tone and the feel and the aesthetics of the lights. That's why we're piloting this, to make sure that this works for our city, works for our neighborhoods, works for our employees in small businesses, etc. Let me give a few facts about what we're trying to do, and then I'm not sure of the format. We're going to have a few other folks that I'll introduce here to give a little more detail, and then let's talk through it, and I eagerly wait to see how our city embraces this new technology. It seems to be a very good match between both being environmentally sustainable, doing what we think is right for our environment, and saving money. Whenever we match those two types of values, it's a win-win. That's not to say we go into these things blindly, not worrying about other issues, how it affects the quality of life, how it affects our pocketbooks. We balance these issues, and hopefully it makes a smart decision. So let me give you a few facts that we're trying to do. We will be installing, Seattle City Light will install 5,000 energy-efficient LED streetlights this year and 40,000 during the next 5 years. This is going to save our city nearly $300,000 in our first year, and $2.4 million a year once all 40,000 street lights are installed. Let me share with you some information that I have that other cities are doing, just to know that we're not alone in embracing this new technology. My research would suggest that Anchorage, Alaska has been installing 16,000 LED street lights. San Francisco announced it will convert 30,000 street lamps, and Los Angeles has announced plans to convert 140,000 street lamps. So other major cities are exploring this technology, and again, it just seems to be the smart thing to do. I'm really glad that you're here because you're looking at this technology as we do. Again, I believe that you have to actually look at it, feel it, see it, walk it, invest in it before you go all the way out and make sure that we change all of our lighting to this kind of technology. But I must tell you, I'm very optimistic, very optimistic. Again, I think at the end of the day, it will give us an illumination that we will adjust to and feel good about, and it will save our ratepayers money in the long run, and it will save our planet in the process. And so I think it's a smart thing to do. I want to introduce two people. I'm not exactly sure of the format, so I'll just introduce them both, and then they can sort of work out the logistics. I'm going to introduce our Streetlight Engineering Manager, Edward Smalley, otherwise known as Ed, who has been with City Light for 21 years, I believe, and has worked on for City Light for 10 years, and prior to that was in the engineering group. And you heard first from the Lighting Design Lab Director, Michael Lane, who's been working in lighting design issues for over 20 years, I believe, and more specifically with City Light for the last 10 years. So now I'm going to ask Ed to come up and say a few more words about LED street lighting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, once again, thank you all for coming. It's been a very exciting last few years as we've been trying to do our best to research and experience this new technology. City Light has been doing our experimenting since 2007. We started in North Seattle with our first pilot, and then we moved to Capitol Hill recently, also in South Park, and then most recently in West Seattle. So we have about 18 different pilot locations out in the different neighborhoods. And each location uses either a different light or a different spin on the light, or uses the light in a different way. So one of the things that we wanted to convey is that we've looked at these lights very closely, and we've had a lot of good positive feedback. We have had some concerns from different neighbors, but overall, as an example, in Capitol Hill, we've had about an 85% approval rating, if it were called that. But about 85% of those, what we did is we put notices on each door that was affected. We've talked to the neighbors, and we've even been out at night with Seattle Police to review these items. And of those people who were surveyed responded, about 85% said, let's do more of this. And so there were some neighbors that said, you know what, I don't like the color of that. And it was interesting on Capitol Hill was where we had that experience. That was our experience with lighting that was of a color temperature of what we call 6,000 K or 6,000 Kelvin. And what we do is we look at color temperature as we look at how bright or how the appearance of daylight, and then we look at the appearance of moonlight, and then we look at the appearance of fire. Those are all a different feel, they have each a different feel to them. And I think for nighttime, I think most people would say they're most comfortable with the appearance of fire or incandescent light that we have in our homes. And so what we experienced on Capitol Hill was that light that was closer to sunlight, being out there at their homes at nighttime, was less comfortable for some. Although we had an 85% approval rating, there were some that felt very strongly that that was not exactly what they wanted to have in front of their homes. And so what we did is we went to South Park and we brought the light color temperature down to what most people would, or what would be technically considered closer to moonlight. And with that, that was a much more comfortable feel for people, and we looked at that pilot, we moved that same type of lighting in a little bit of a different twist in West Seattle, and what we found was we really didn't have people complaining about the color quality. So this is several years of us experimenting, trying to work with the community, trying to get some feedback, trying to find out what is it about the light that is bothering you, and we found that we tweaked it to try to address those concerns, and we believe we were successful with that. We're still fielding comments, we're still trying to get some feedback from folks, but those are the steps we've taken over the last several years to get closer to what would be more acceptable to the citizens and residents here in Seattle. So we are going, our approach, as Councilmember Harrell has pointed out, will be 5,000 lights this first year. Some have said, well, why didn't you do more, or why haven't you done less? We thought it was a reasonable amount to jump into on a full-bore rollout. And I've got a map over here. You may not be able to see it very visibly, but you can come up later. The area that we're trying to reach out to is this area north of the Ship Canal and south of North 65th, cutting right through Green Lake. There's about 5,000 residential lights in that zone. There's about 5,000 in the zone below it as well. But we chose this zone for a number of different reasons, and some had to do with us being contacted by some folks in Ballard and the University District. And so some of the folks saying, you know what, we think we'd like to have that in our neighborhoods. But just so you know, that's the area that, there were a number of other reasons why we chose this neighborhood. And part of it had to do with, some of you are familiar with our group relamping program we started in 2008. It had already started down in the south end. We wanted to make sure that those neighborhoods had all the lights on, and we moved consecutively northward. And this zone, phase 3, is our next area to address group relamping. So what we decided to do to leverage, again, the city funds was to, instead of changing the lamp, we're going to change the entire fixture. Instead of just changing the lamp out, we're going to save some money there and change the entire fixture and replace the whole thing with an LED. So that's kind of where we're going.